Stamford Bridge is a village and a civil parish on the River Derwent in the East Riding of Yorkshire, about 7 miles east of York. This lies on the border of the Rydale district of North Yorkshire, with a population of 3,528 people, according to a census done in 2011. But this is also my home, the place I grew up, my family are here. This is the place that partly made me who I am. I want to show you this strange little world that I grew up in. I've lived in Stamford Bridge for 15 years. I moved here when I was 3.5, and I have my first birthday here soon after moving. I think Stamford Bridge is a nice place to live because it's such a tight-knit community and it has such a variety of strange characters in it. Everyone looks out for each other, everyone knows each other, everyone's so involved in each other's lives. I think we're sometimes on top of each other in Stamford Bridge. And people tend to be a bit more nosy in such a rural community rather than in a bigger city, because we're so close and there's not much around Stamford Bridge apart from fields and other villages, but they're further out. We're just stuck in the countryside. The crime rate in Stamford Bridge is very low, and that adds to the fact that that's why everybody knows each other, because if there was a crime in the village, probably someone would know who it was or report it to the police or something. This place wasn't that good for me when I was 14, probably about 14 to 18 was when I was like, oh my god, I want to get out of here, I hate it so much. And then when I moved away, I was like, because I lived in Leeds for a year for my first year at university, and I've just recently moved back, and I like missed it, and I like living here now because I missed my family and all, and the people that live in the village, and I don't know, I like this as my home. I don't belong to any clubs and societies at the moment because I've just moved back, and plus my involvement in the community from about 16 was non-existent, and it still is now, and I don't like to get too involved in what people are doing and get on top, because I don't want to be in such a tight community, because people tend to know who my little brother and my little sister are and who my mum and dad are, and then when they hear about me it's like, oh right, Mick and Lucy have another daughter? Oh, okay, because I never did anything apart from I was in the Stamford Bridge Players from about the age of about 8 to 16, I'd say, and that was interesting. I did a lot of acting and I did the pantomime and stuff, and I was involved in stuff with school. I know something about the history in Stamford Bridge. What do I know about the history of Stamford Bridge? I know that there was a battle in 1066 on the 25th of September, and that originally Stamford Bridge used to be a Roman settlement called Devento or Deventino or something, and it used to be a Roman fort which they thought there was up near Pocklington, but actually it wasn't. It was here because they found it recently, and that later moved on, that there was a battle here between Hardrada, who was a Viking, and King Harold, who was obviously a Saxon, and they won the battle, and well, it's a big deal because there's reenactments in the village and all this big upheaval about it. I think that my family's involvement in the community has a big impact on me because they're all overly involved. I think my parents are involved in the community because my mum's the church warden of the church, and she also used to run Free Spirit. She also works in the pub. She also works in the Co-op, which is the only sort of supermarket in the village. She's basically a pillar of the community, and sometimes I'll help her out with things, and I'll run stalls at church and stuff, but other than that, my involvement's not that great. And my dad's the leader of the junior football club, and he runs that, and he's brilliant at that, and he works really hard. And I don't know, I think my parents help make this community better for not only me but like people my age. I'd rather have parents that are involved in the community rather than parents that can't be bothered, and if they wanted to just were like nothing. My grandparents' involvement in the community. My granddad's was a head of the village in Bloom, and he ran that, and he won the gold medal award for the whole of the country, and he made the village one of the most beautiful green places to live that there could possibly be. And he commissioned a big Viking ship in the centre of the village, and that looks really good, and that's got all flowers in it, and it looks really nice, and he unveiled that and was really proud of himself and stuff, and it's quite sweet how they're involved. And my grandma's constantly making cakes for various bake sales and church, and she's involved in that, and she's always behind my granddad, helping him do everything, and she always helps. She's always helpful. She runs coffee mornings with my granddad. She works really hard. And my auntie runs Free Spirits. Well, she just started running Free Spirits, which is just to do with the church and like a children's club in the church, like a youth group. My cousins are all members of clubs and various things like that, like my younger cousins, Matthew and Peter. And Hannah goes to the school, and I went to Stamford Bridge primary school when I was younger, and all my cousins have been through Stamford Bridge primary school, and Thomas and Rosie, my brother and sister, have been to Stamford primary school. How long have you lived in Stamford Bridge?
15 and a bit years.
What's your opinion of Stamford Bridge? Do you think it's a nice place to live?
It's cute, bit boring, very boring. It's safe though, is probably the best thing about it.
What do you know about the history in Stamford Bridge?
There was a battle in 1066, something to do with the Vikings, and something to do with Hardrada or Harold or both or same bit. I don't know.
You were in a musical about it as well, weren't you?
Yeah, but I was like in year 3, so I was only a little soldier.
Can you remember anyone else that was in it?
You? You did the Bear Tapestry, and there was Tostig.
No clue who he was played by.
No idea. Something. I thought it was Harry, but it's obviously not. That Josh guy?
Yes. Do you belong to any societies and clubs in the village, or have you done?
I used to play football for the Stamford club, and that was like for 8 years, and I went to the church youth group, and the
As someone who's
club.
applying for university, would you like to leave Stamford Bridge? Please elaborate. Where are you applying for?
I'm hopefully gonna go to London. I've only applied for places in London because it's like the opposite of here, and I want to get like varied experiences of different places, because like Stamford's a bit rubbish, and it's York's like second, like the place I go second as much. That doesn't make sense. And I go to York a lot, and that's tiny for a city, and that's also really safe and stuff. So I'd quite like to go somewhere big and exciting and important.
Do you have any relationship with the church?
We go on Christmas Day. Used to go a bit, and I got confirmed there by the Archbishop of York. And yeah, it was a youth group, but that's about it.
What do you feel about the transport in Stamford Bridge as you don't drive?
Buses are wank. They're always late. They're only on time when you want it to be late. They're only late when you need it to be on time. Just all over the place. And there's only one service, which is proper rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just shocking. And at night, it stops at 11, and there are only like one every hour at that time anyway. And it's a different bus service altogether. So if you want to like go out in the morning and come back late at night, you have to get 2 different tickets. So it could cost you like £7 for buses in a day. It's ridiculous.
So you feel like the access to the village is limited, and
we need more buses, better buses, cheaper buses. They're just shy.
With your parents and your grandparents and your aunties and your uncles and various other people in the family, what do you feel about having them so close to you in living in such a small community?
Depends what mood I'm in. If like, it's good that grandma and granddad live around the corner, because you can, when you have time, you can make the most of them and like spend time with them, like, because later on you might regret it. And if they live in like Leeds or London or somewhere else, like somewhere far away, it'd be a lot more difficult to see them, and then you wouldn't be as close with them. But we're quite close with our grandparents, so that's cool to have them around the corner. But
how do you feel about your parents' involvement in the small society of the village?
I mean,
it's got like a hierarchy kind of thing.
Yeah,
like,
I have like respect for mum and dad for doing, because it's all volunteering what they do, so respect for that. But I wouldn't do it, but each their own. They're into what they do. Dad's into football, mum's into church and community and school and all that. But
and how do you feel about your grandparents' involvement? I mean, are you
that's just funny.
It's like, do you think your parents' involvement is sort of embarrassing, and then do you feel embarrassed by it sometimes that your parents are so involved?
Sometimes, but they're not like...
Being, for instance, your dad was... that
was so embarrassing. Dad being my football manager. That was shockingly embarrassing.
Do you feel like they were too... I mean, do you feel that they...
But that was mainly because it was like, with me, like Dad... He was involved in what I was doing rather than in football in general. So... It's when my friends see it, like, some of them would like it, some of them would think it was like quite embarrassing. So,
but whereas your grandparents' involvement in the village
cute.
Is sweet, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
rather
cute.
Rather than being embarrassing to an extent. I mean, mum's involvement is completely different, but her father's involvement is somewhat embarrassing to us.
That's true.
In certain situations.
Yeah.
How long have you lived in Stamford Bridge?
About 15 years.
How do you feel about Stamford Bridge, and do you think it's a nice place to live? Please elaborate.
Yeah, I like the Stamford Bridge. It's a nice, friendly place. It's small enough to know most people, but it's getting bigger. And yeah, there's a good mixture of people. There's lots of people our age, quite a few older people, and quite a lot of younger people too.
What do you know about the history in Stamford Bridge, and why do you think there isn't a museum in the village?
I don't know, it's a real gap. Certainly a lot of people come, and as it gets more known, I think there should be a museum or something that celebrates the Battle of 1066 and its history. I suppose there's so much historical goes on in York that people don't think to actually just step outside to York and Fulford, where some of the big battles took place. People don't capitalise on it.
What are your roles in the community, and what do you add to the village?
I don't know what I add. My roles are I'm church warden at the church, so I look after the church and get involved in taking some of the worship and help with the youth group and the Sunday school and various other bits and bobs in the church. I work in one of the pubs in the old station, and I work in the local shop, and I used to run a nursery here, so I know a lot of the kids and a lot of the parents in the village. What else do I do? I help with the fundraising for the football. Dad's the chairman, so I help him with that. And we get
What was your involvement in Remembrance Day?
On Remembrance Sunday there's always a big parade through the village, and all the uniform brigades, the brownies, the cubs, the beavers, the rainbows, the guides and the scouts all march through the village with a big brass band, and then meet at church, where we have a short ceremony by the memorial, and then we all go in church for a service. So my role was making sure the church was set up and all the service sheets were out and all the chairs were out for the brownies and what have you, and the extra seating, because it's always completely packed on Remembrance service, and then making sure everybody was welcomed into the service, had somewhere to sit or stand at the back, and then I got name checking the sermon, because last year I'd done some research into the names on the memorial thing, on the war memorial, and found out who they all were and what their jobs had been before they were joined the army, and where they lived. Yes, it was very interesting. I enjoyed doing it, and a number of people have made contact since and said how useful it was, because they didn't know those things about their relatives.
Grandad interview take one. Grandad interview take one. How long have you lived in Stamford Bridge?
It'll be 25 years.
How do you feel about Stamford Bridge? Is it a nice place to live?
It's a very nice place to live. I'm absolutely delighted with it. There's so many activities going on, and we just enjoy the area. Such a lovely area as well. Yeah, very pretty area. And park country and park village. Yeah, it's very, very lovely.
What do you know about the history of Stamford Bridge?
Not too much, other than the fact that, of course, it has a very important Viking history. The Vikings, of course, came here and they came over to Hull, and then they came up here. There was the big battle of Stamford Bridge. Nobody knows exactly where the battle took place, although there's different theories about it. But it has a wonderful history, and that rich history, of course, is so important.
Would you like to talk about your involvement in the local church and just the church in general?
Yes, well, of course, I am a lay minister in the Church of England. Have been for over 20 years. I'm retired now, but I've enjoyed that. I don't get involved an awful lot with the church here, but I am involved with the church in church group in Stockton-on-Forest, which is where we used to live before. That group of churches, there are 4 churches there. But no, I'm very much like being a Christian, and I like supporting and helping people.
Would you like to tell me about your involvement in the Village in Bloom?
I would indeed, yes. I'm very proud of Village in Bloom. With a young lady in the village, I started Village in Bloom about 6 years ago, and we've had quite a lot of success with it. It's involved an awful lot of hard work. A lot of people in the village say that the village has changed much for the better since we started up, and we have, of course, gone in for. We started a year, and then the following year we went into Yorkshire in Bloom, which is the prestigious awards for the whole of Yorkshire. And the first year we won a silver award, which was very good, as well as the best new project in the whole of Yorkshire, Yorkshire Rose. And then the following year we got a silver gilt. The following year we went back to silver. Then we got a silver gilt. And this year, of course, has been the epitome of success when we very excitingly won a gold award in the Yorkshire in Bloom a small town category, and we also won the best in the category, which was a great honour for us, and we're very excited about it. And the local village were very pleased that we had done this. And we also, of course, have now got a Viking ship, which has always been my dream, to get a Viking ship. And the local college boys built that for us, which was absolutely wonderful. They made a superb job of it. One of our committee members drew up the plans. The boys at the college were thrilled to make it because they're only used to doing doors and windows and very sort of basic stuff. So the idea of making a Viking ship appealed to them, and they very kindly made it for us, and they've done a superb job. We had to fill it with soil, which took a lot of hard work. And then one of our planting group ladies worked hard and filled it with shrubs. And it's brought an awful lot of interest, not just locally, but throughout the whole of East Yorkshire. And also there's even been an article in the Dalesman about it. So we've had a very exciting time.
Did you know, Grandad, that your Viking ship's on Wikipedia? Like on the Wikipedia page of...
Is it? No, I didn't know that.
On the Wikipedia page of...
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. We also, I think, have a... is it Twitter or Facebook? We've also got a... I forget what you call it, sorry.
Like a web page, like a group or something on
That's
the
right,
internet,
yeah. Yeah, we have, yes. Yeah. And we try to keep that updated. So we're very pleased about that. A website. We have a website. So very pleased about that. Yeah.
That's good. How do you feel about the transport in Stamford Bridge? Because, I mean, you obviously having a car can get out of Stamford Bridge, but
Yeah.
what would you feel if you were my age or like Rosie or Thomas's age living in Stamford Bridge?
I think the transport to York is quite good because normally there's 2 an hour. I think Sundays is a bit more difficult where there's 1 an hour. Generally speaking, that's not too bad. We have a bus party, my wife and I, but what we do is, although we don't always get the bus from here, we take the car to the park and ride site at Grimston Bar, and we then use our pass to go from there into York, which we did quite recently. And that is very good because we can do that for 70p each.
Good.
The other thing about the transport is that I think is disappointing is that Pocklington is rather nice. It's not far away. There are buses that run there. There's hardly any that come through. I think there's only about 3 or 4 a day, which is very disappointing, and something needs to be done about that.
Yeah, that's true. How do you feel about having your whole family surrounded you in the village?
That's been a great blessing to us. It's been wonderful to have the family close by. If ever I feel a little bit down, I think to myself, certainly years ago when we had lots of babysits, I used to think, oh dear, the family are a little bit too close. And then once or twice I've mentioned it to other people and they've said, don't you dare complain about your family being close by, because my daughter's in New Zealand, my son is in Surrey, the other end of the country, and I hardly ever see my grandchildren. But we've been very fortunate because we have 2 daughters and a son that live in Stamford Bridge, quite close by. We have another son that lives in the other side of York. We have a daughter that lives in York. So it's wonderful because we've seen all our 13 grandchildren grow up. It's been wonderful. We're very lucky. Very, very lucky indeed.
Is it good being the head of such a huge family?
I don't know about that, being the head. I'm not always listened to. I am looked upon as a bit of a nuisance, but no, it is good being the head of the family, I must admit. And I do feel it's lovely when the grandchildren come round and confide in me, which is rather nice.
Well, you are a good granddad. So.
Thank you.
I think that's about it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Thank you for asking me. It's very kind of you.
How long have you lived in the village?
About 24, nearly 25 years.
Do you think Stamford Bridge is a nice place to live?
Yes, I do. It's lovely. It's got all the shops and there's the river and it's got all the amenities and it's a pretty place.
Yeah.
So, appealing.
Do you think the people are nice in the village?
Yeah, I found them very pleasant. Yeah. Shops and most of our neighbours and that and talk to and helpful, friendly.
What do you know about the history of Stamford Bridge?
Not a great deal. I know the Vikings were here and King Ardra and his brother, they fought the thing, but it wasn't on the bridge that's here now, it was just further up the river. So, yeah, and they did an excavation behind the field behind us, and they found some bits of pottery and signs of agriculture where they used to have the fields and things. And when they put the earth back afterwards, when they filled it in the first time, they did it twice. When they filled it in the first time, we had all these very big, clover came up, which we hadn't seen before. So it must have used some seeds that are being laid dormant deep down. Yeah, it was interesting.
Why do you think there's not a museum in the village? Because it's got so much history and it's such a...
I don't know, they were talking about it at one point, especially if they found more. But I suppose maybe they haven't got enough visual aids, you know, things are dug out to make a museum. I mean, they could do pictures and pictures of the archaeological digs, but I suppose there's just not enough.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting for visitors.
Yeah.
It'd be another thing to draw them, because they quite often stop for coffee and that on the way to the coast and that.
Yeah.
So
do you think there's not a lot of tourists in Stamford Bridge?
well, there are quite a number, because the coaches stop, don't they, for coffee on the way, quite often. But yeah, I don't think they've got enough to do a museum at the moment. But there is the Viking history, isn't there?
What is your involvement in the local church or like the societies and clubs that are in the village?
Well, I don't. Grandad does, but we belong to the Stockton-on-Forest Holy Trinity Church. I'm sacristant there.
So what does that job involve?
Well, getting the candles and getting the communion set up and make sure the linen's washed and breads and that for the communion and the wine and the.
Do you help? You often do coffee mornings in the village, don't you? We'll help Grandad with this.
Yeah, I help them, and I usually make cakes or scones or
Shortbread.
I've made up to 7 dozen scones odd for some of the things, especially for the open gardens. And they did cream teas in 2 places, and they kept coming. Can we have some more? Can we have some more?
Do you know anything about the village in Bloom, about all of that and the Viking?
Well, Grandad's a chairman, so. Then he got the Viking boat made. It was full of flowers and shrubs, and it was very nice. Another attraction to the village. So, yeah. So.
Do you think it's nice having your family all around you in the
lovely.
village?
It's lovely. Because watched you all grow up, and it's been lovely making you things.
Yeah, because you often meet
us. So. Yeah, it's lovely. Sometimes now you're older, we don't see as much of you as we did when you were younger, but yeah, you're busy with your careers and that. So. But you still come to see us from time to time, and that's lovely. Get together at Christmas and that. It's lovely. Hello. I don't think you're supposed to be on the table.
She's such a terrible girl. I think that's about it. Yeah. Thank you, Grandma.
Is that all right?